There are names in the 41st millennium that inspire fear across 1,000 worlds. Names whispered in the darkness of burning hive cities. Names that make even hardened veterans of the Astra Militarum check the shadows before sleep. Names that carry with them the weight of 10,000 years of slaughter. But few names carry quite the same dread as Kharn the Betrayer. Across the blood-soaked battlefields of the galaxy, from the Eye of Terror to the Eastern Fringe, his legend has grown into something beyond mere reputation. He is the avatar of Khorne made flesh, the embodiment of that dark god's most sacred principle, that blood must flow, skulls must be taken, and that loyalty, honor, and brotherhood mean nothing when compared to the simple purity of violence. His mantra has echoed across countless worlds. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. Words that have become synonymous with unstoppable, indiscriminate carnage. To understand Kharn the Betrayer is to understand the fundamental tragedy at the heart of the Horus Heresy. He was not born into corruption. He did not seek out the dark gods with the calculating ambition of an Erebus, or the bitter resentment of a Perturabo. Instead, Kharn's fall represents something far more heartbreaking. The complete transformation of a noble warrior, a voice of reason, a loyal son, into the ultimate expression of meaningless slaughter. The man who once cooled his Primarch's rages became the berserker who knows no friend from foe, who murders allies as readily as enemies, who exists only to kill. For over 10,000 years, Kharn has carved a red wake through Imperial space, the pile of skulls that stands beside Khorne's brazen throne dedicated solely to Kharn's offerings would fill entire hive cities. He has slain millions, guardsmen, space marines, xenos of every imaginable species, even demons when they've had the misfortune to cross his path. He wields Gorechild, the ancient chainaxe once borne by Angron himself, its teeth torn from the jaws of mica dragons and its blade still hungry after 10 millennia of constant use. And in the lens of his helmet, a kill counter forged from arcane technology continues to climb, a gift from the War Master Horus himself, tracking an endless tally of death. This is the story of how a hero became a monster, how loyalty became betrayal, and how one of the galaxy's finest warriors transformed into its most terrifying killer. Before there was a betrayer, before the title that would define him for eternity, there was simply Kharn, a warrior of Terra, inducted into the War Hounds, the 12th Legion of the Emperor's Space Marines. Born on mankind's homeworld during the early years of the Great Crusade, Kharn was selected for a legion that had earned a reputation for ferocity in close combat, for a willingness to engage the enemy at knife-fighting range no matter the odds or the cost. Under the tutelage of Master of Neophytes Gruner on the world of Bot, young Kharn learned the brutal arts of war that would define his existence. The War Hounds were not subtle warriors. They did not favor the tactical flexibility of the Ultramarines or the coordinated fury of the Dark Angels. They fought with a directness that bordered on savage, closing with the enemy as quickly as possible and engaging in the kind of close-quarters butchery that broke lesser forces. It was a doctrine that suited Kharn perfectly. He rose through the ranks with the kind of steady competence that marked the truly exceptional. By the time the War Hounds were reunited with their Primarch, Kharn had achieved the rank of captain of the 8th Assault Company, a position of significant responsibility within the Legion. He had proven himself in battle after battle, earning the respect of his brothers through skill at arms and an almost reckless courage that saw him always at the forefront of the fighting. But nothing in his training or experience could have prepared him for the reunion with Angron. When the Emperor found the Primarch of the 12th Legion on the gladiator world of New Syria, it should have been a moment of triumph. Instead, it became a tragedy that would echo through the millennia. Angron had not been raised in luxury like Guilliman, had not led armies of liberation like the Lion, had not built empires like Horus. Instead, he had been a slave, forced to fight in the blood-soaked pits of Nuceria's gladiatorial arenas, his brain mutilated with archaic neurosurgical implants called the butcher's nails that turned pain into pleasure and made peace physically agonizing. When the Emperor teleported Angron aboard the War Hounds' flagship Adamant Resolve, ripping him away from his final stand alongside his fellow gladiators, the Primarch felt only rage and betrayal. The Emperor had robbed him of his chosen death, of his last act of defiance against the masters who had enslaved him. And so Angron, sealed within a cargo hold, took out his fury on the only targets available, his own sons. One by one, the captains and commanders of the War Hounds entered that cargo hold, attempting to reason with their Gene Father to convince him to take his rightful place at the head of the Legion. One by one, Angron slaughtered them, his massive frame moving with the terrifying speed of a Primarch, his bare hands tearing through power armor like parchment. The deck ran red with the blood of officers who had survived 100 campaigns, only to die at the hands of the father they had dreamed of meeting. When Kharn's turn came, he was one of the few remaining officers of his rank. The cargo hold was a charnel house, scattered with the broken bodies of his brothers, blood pooling in the deck plates, the air thick with the copper scent of slaughter. And in the center of it all sat Angron, a massive figure perched atop a pile of power-armored corpses, his scarred face twisted with an anguish that went beyond mere anger. Kharn walked into that chamber calmly, never flinching even as the looming shadow of his Primarch rose to greet him. Where others had tried to reason, had tried to plead, had tried to fight, Kharn simply knelt. He looked up into those pain-racked eyes and spoke words that would change the course of his life forever. He did not pretend to understand what Angron had endured. He did not offer empty platitudes about duty or destiny. Instead, Kharn made a simple promise. The galaxy was full of enemies who deserved slaughter. If Angron would lead them, the War Hounds would point him toward those enemies and unleash him upon them. No chains, no masters, just the promise of endless battle against those who truly merited death. It was the first time anyone had offered Angron a choice. Not an order, not a mandate from the Emperor, but a simple proposition from one warrior to another. And in that moment, something shifted. Angron did not kill Kharn. Instead, he listened. And in listening, he found in this captain something that resonated with his gladiator's soul. Directness, honesty, courage that didn't flinch from the truth. Kharn became Angron's equerry, his second in command, his voice when the Primarch's rages threatened to overwhelm tactical sense. It was an unusual choice that raised eyebrows throughout the Legion and beyond. The equerry's role was traditionally to serve as a counterpoint to the Primarch's personality, to temper and guide his decisions. Kharn was neither patient nor particularly subtle, nor a great orator. He was a warrior first and foremost, and when Angron charged into battle, Kharn was typically second into the thickest fighting, right behind his father, killing anything that had escaped the Primarch's twin chainaxes, Gorefather and Gorechild. But there was an undeniable bond between them. Kharn understood Angron in ways others couldn't. He had looked into that cargo hold and seen not a monster, but a broken warrior who had been denied even the dignity of choosing his own death. And paradoxically, during the early days of the Great Crusade, Kharn became known as the one man who could calm Angron's blood rages, a surprising contrast to the berserker he would one day become. Then came the butcher's nails. Angron demanded that his entire legion receive the implants that had been hammered into his own skull. Despite protests from the legion's apothecaries, despite warnings from those who understood the long-term consequences, Angron insisted. If his sons truly wanted to call themselves the children of the Red Angel, they would share in his pain, in his fury, and the terrible gift that had both sustained and destroyed him. The early attempts at implantation were catastrophic. Under Apothecary Galen Serlek, the procedure had a 100% fatality rate. The crude copies of Angron's nails, reverse-engineered from Genin neurocybernetic technology, were simply too invasive, too damaging for even the enhanced physiology of a space marine to survive. Bodies piled up as the apothecaries refined their technique, each failure representing a brother lost to the quest to share in their Primarch's suffering. Kharn volunteered to be the next test subject. It was an act of either supreme courage or utter madness. Kharn knew the odds. He had seen what the nails did to those who couldn't survive the implantation. But he also knew that someone had to be first. Someone had to prove it could be done. And if anyone was going to shoulder that burden, it should be the one who had convinced Angron to lead them in the first place. The surgery was agony beyond description. Large amounts of nails trailed with cables resembling dreadlocks were inserted through the skull directly into the brain tissue, creating connections that amplified anger and rage while severing the neural pathways that allowed for peace, for satisfaction, for anything except the rush of combat. It was a lobotomy designed to transform warriors into weapons, removing the ability to feel anything except in the midst of slaughter. When Kharn emerged from the operating theater alive, the entire dynamic of the Legion changed. He was the first, the proof that it could be done. And in surviving, he earned something he had never sought, Angron's acknowledgement as a true son. For the Primarch, who had lost his gladiator brothers on New Syria, who had been denied his chosen family, seeing one of his gene sons survive the same torture he endured daily created a bond that went beyond mere military hierarchy. But the nails changed Kharn in ways that would only become apparent as the years wore on. The patient counselor began to show signs of the berserker lurking beneath. The reckless traits he had long kept in check began to rise to the surface. The man who had once cooled Angron's rages found himself increasingly unable to control his own. During the Great Crusade, Kharn forged bonds that would haunt him in the years to come. He fought alongside and against some of the finest warriors the galaxy had ever produced. Argel Tal of the Word-Bearers became a close friend, one of the few outside his legion who understood the World Eaters, as they had become known after receiving the nails. Sigismund of the Imperial Fists became both a friend and a dueling partner, the two meeting in the practice cages of the Conqueror, Angron's flagship, to test their skills against each other. It was from these duels that Sigismund earned the name Black Knight and adopted Kharn's custom of binding weapons to his wrists with chains. Kharn even formed a friendship with Garviel Loken of the Luna Wolves, one of the most respected captains in Horus's legion. And there was Nasir Amit of the Blood Angels, another warrior who understood what it meant to struggle against the violent urges that lurked within transhuman flesh. These friendships mattered to Kharn. They represented connections to warriors who had not received the nails, who could still experience the full range of human emotion. In a way, they were anchors to the man he had been before Angron's gift had rewired his brain. But they were anchors that would not hold once the heresy began. By the time of Istvan III, Kharn had gained a reputation that disturbed even hardened veterans. Death Guard Captain Nathaniel Garrow, encountering him aboard the Vengeful Spirit, reflected that some of the rumors surrounding the World Eater involved atrocities that even the most battle-hardened Death Guard found hard to stomach. The transformation had begun. The nails were doing their work, turning a noble warrior into something else, something that existed only for the next kill. And yet, Kharn's most iconic weapon was still to come. That gift from his Primarch would arrive during the Shadow Crusade amid the burning ruins of Armatura. when he would claim an inheritance that would become legend. When the War Master turned traitor and the Imperium tore itself apart, Kharn and the World Eaters followed Angron without hesitation. But their path through the heresy would prove darker and more transformative than even the most pessimistic observers could have predicted. This was not merely a rebellion against the Emperor's authority. It was a descent into something that transcended politics or military objectives, a slide into pure bloodlust that would fundamentally alter what it meant to be a World Eater. The Shadow Crusade marked a crucial turning point. Fighting alongside Lorgar's word-bearers, Angron and his legion carved a bloody path through Ultramar, bringing ruin to the 500 worlds that Rabut Guilliman had spent decades building. But for Kharn, the campaign meant something more personal. It meant his friendship with Argel Tal, the word-bearer's captain who had been possessed by a demon yet somehow retained his humanity. Tal was remarkable precisely because he seemed to understand Kharn in ways that few others did. Despite bearing one of the first greater demons ever to possess a space marine, Argel Tal maintained a sense of balance, of control. More importantly, he could calm Kharn when the nails threatened to overwhelm him, providing a steadying influence that others in the increasingly feral World Eaters could no longer offer. This friendship worried Erebus, the dark apostle of the word-bearers who had orchestrated so much of the heresy. He saw in Tal's influence over Kharn a threat to the warrior's destiny as the betrayer. On Nuceria, the world where Angron had been a slave, Erebus arranged for Argel Tal's death during battle with the Ultramarines. It was a calculated murder designed to remove the one person who might have prevented Kharn's complete descent into madness. When Tal fell, Kharn's rage was apocalyptic. He nearly killed Erebus in the aftermath, and only the intervention of other word-bearers prevented the Dark Apostle's death that day. It was a glimpse of the monster Kharn would become, a warrior so consumed by fury that even supposed allies were fair game for slaughter. But Argel Tal's death paled in comparison to what happened next on Nuceria. Lorgar had brought Angron back to his homeworld for a specific purpose, to transform the Primarch into something beyond mortal flesh. Using the very butcher's nails that had tormented Angron since childhood as a focus, the word-bearers conducted a ritual that would elevate him to demonhood. The transformation was agonizing and apocalyptic. Angron's physical form was torn apart and rebuilt according to the whims of Khorne, the blood god. When the process was complete, the being that stood in Angron's place was no longer even remotely human. It was a demon prince, a creature of pure wrath and violence that existed simultaneously in the material universe. And the warp. Angron had ascended, but in ascending, he had lost everything that made him more than just another of Khorne's instruments. Kharn was the first person the newly transformed Angron spoke to. The Demon Prince's first command was characteristic of what he had become. Kharn was ordered to massacre the slaves in the lower decks of the Conqueror and build a throne of skulls. No longer fighting for liberty or revenge, Angron now demanded slaughter for slaughter's sake, blood offerings to the god who had claimed him. And Kharn obeyed. Later, when members of the World Eaters and crew serfs attempted a mutiny aboard the increasingly corrupted Conqueror, desperately trying to escape a ship that was transforming into a nightmare, it was Kharn who helped shipmaster Lotara Sarene put down the rebellion. The man who had once valued loyalty and brotherhood was now killing his own Legion brothers simply because they sought escape from damnation. During this period, the World Eaters descended into mindless slaughter on a scale that disturbed even other traitor legions. They no longer fought for objectives or strategies. They simply killed, moving from world to world, leaving nothing but corpses in their wake. When Horus summoned his forces to muster at Ulanor in preparation for the assault on Terra, Angron and the World Eaters refused, too consumed with their butchery to care about the War Master's plans. This eventually forced Perturabo and the Iron Warriors to track them down on the world of Deluge. What they found was a nightmare. The entire population had been slaughtered and their bodies erected into a massive mound. At the top of this mountain of corpses stood Kharn, pleading with Perturabo and his forces to leave before it was too late. It was perhaps the last gasp of the old Kharn trying to protect warriors he had no reason to harm. But when Angron led his demonic forces against the Iron Warriors, any pretense of reason evaporated in the rush of combat. At Istvan III, during the initial purge of loyalists from the traitor legions, Kharn had already demonstrated the changes wrought by the nails he fought Garviel Loken, the Luna Wolves captain who had once been his friend, with a ferocity that bordered on feral. The duel ended when Loken hurled Kharn against the dozer blades of a nearby vehicle, impaling the World Eater's chest. It should have been a fatal wound, but apothecary Cargos recovered Kharn's broken body and somehow kept him alive. By the time the traitor legions reached Terra for the climactic siege of the Imperial Palace, Kharn was barely able to hold back the urge to murder anything around him, even valued comrades like Lotara Sarin. The nails had done their work too well, transforming the voice of reason into a weapon that recognized no distinction between friend and foe. During the Siege of Terra, Kharn was at the forefront of every major assault. When the World Eaters attacked the Lion's Gate spaceport, a crucial objective that would allow the traitors to land their titans and war engines, Kharn led the charge alongside Warsmith Kroger and Abaddon the Despoiler. The fighting was apocalyptic, with tens of thousands dying in the opening hours as the Imperial fists and their allies desperately held the walls. It was during this battle that Kharn came face to face with Sigismund once more. The Imperial Fists captain was no longer the warrior Kharn had sparred with in friendlier times. He had become the Emperor's champion, clad in the finest armor and wielding the black sword, charged with hunting down and slaying the champions of chaos. When these two former friends met in combat, it was a clash between everything they had once been and everything they had become. The first encounter saw Kharn infused with Khorne's power, the blood god pouring his strength directly into his chosen champion. Even Sigismund, perhaps the finest duelist in the Legiones Astartes, could not match this combination of skill and demonic enhancement. Kharn bested him, and was moments away from claiming the skull of the Emperor's champion for Khorne when Rogel Dorn himself intervened. The Primarch of the Imperial Fists swatted Kharn away like an insect, a casual blow that sent the World Eater flying and likely would have killed a lesser warrior. Only a rescue operation led by Abaddon prevented Kharn's death, the future War Master recognizing that whatever else Kharn had become, he was still too valuable to lose. But there would be a second meeting between Kharn and Sigismund, and this one would not end in the World Eater's favor. Later in the siege, as Sigismund carved a bloody path through the traitor champions, he encountered Kharn once more. This time, despite the rage flowing through Kharn's veins and the power of the blood god surging in his muscles, Sigismund proved himself the superior warrior. His blade found its mark again and again, each strike bringing Kharn closer to death. When the World Eater finally fell, Sigismund stood over him with the kind of grim satisfaction that came from ending a worthy opponent. Kharn's last words to Sigismund were perhaps his most prophetic. Even as he lay dying, impaled on the Emperor's champion's sword, Kharn looked up at his old friend and recognized what the Imperium was becoming. The religious fanaticism that had been building throughout the siege, the zealotry that was replacing the imperial truth with worship of the Emperor as a god, Kharn saw it all reflected in Sigismund's transformed demeanor. He might have condemned the changes in himself, but he recognized that the Imperium was changing too, becoming something as rigid and unforgiving as the chaos it fought. "You've changed," Kharn might have said, blood bubbling from his lips. "Not as damaged as you have become." Then Sigismund withdrew his blade, and Kharn fell atop a mound of traitor marine corpses piled high before the walls of the inner palace. He had been at the forefront of every assault, had been the first of his legion to breach the walls, had claimed more skulls than any other World Eater during the entire siege. Legend would later say he had slain over 1 million of the Emperor's defenders. An impossible number, but one that spoke to the terror his rampage had inspired. When Horus fell and the traitor legions were forced to flee Terra, the surviving World Eaters carried Kharn's body away with them. They couldn't bear to leave their greatest champion behind, even if he appeared to be dead. For a long time, Kharn lay unconscious in the hold of the World Eater's flagship, teetering on the edge of death, while the Legion's captains argued over who should lead them now that Angron had ascended to demonhood and abandoned his sons once more. The revival came in a moment of perfect, terrible irony. 2 captains were arguing over Kharn's body, one claiming that his corpse should be honored, the other insisting it meant nothing. The dispute escalated to violence, and one captain murdered the other, fresh blood spattering across Kharn's pale flesh. Whether it was the touch of that blood, the favor of Horn recognizing his greatest champion's sacrifice, or simply Kharn's own indomitable will refusing to accept death, he awakened. The World Eater, who should have died atop the walls of Terra, opened his eyes and rose, ready to continue the war that had consumed his soul. But Kharn's greatest act of betrayal was still to come. After the disaster at Terra and the flight into the Eye of Terror, the traitor legions found themselves in desperate need of sanctuary. The Great Scouring had begun, with loyalist forces hunting the traitors across the galaxy, determined to extract vengeance for the betrayal at Terra and the death of the Emperor's mortal form. Within the twisted realm of the Eye, different legions claimed different demon worlds as their own, establishing strongholds from which they could rebuild their strength and plan their revenge. The demon world of Skalathrax became a point of contention between 2 legions in particular, the World Eaters and the Emperor's Children. Located in a pocket of relative calm within the Eye, Skalathrax offered a possible refuge for any legion seeking to escape the immediate aftermath of their defeat. The Emperor's Children had discovered it first and laid claim to the system, planning to turn it into the center of their operations. They were joined by various Chaos followers, including traitor Night Houses and Titan legions, who sought shelter in the ancient Xenos ruins that dotted the planet's surface. But a large World Eater's fleet also arrived in the system, drawn by the same promise of sanctuary. And where 2 traitor legions met in the Eye of Terror, conflict was inevitable. Many of the World Eater's officers, led by the de facto Legion commander Gorechild, urged an immediate attack against the Emperor's Children. They saw Fulgrim's sons as weak, decadent, too concerned with their pursuit of sensation to pose a real threat in battle. More level-headed officers like Argus Brond and Solax advocated for either leaving the system or negotiating with the Emperor's Children for shared access to the planet's resources. The dispute was ended by the sudden appearance of Kharn, who had been in a coma since his near death at the Siege of Terra. Having awakened only hours before, he convinced representatives from both legions to meet on one of Skalathrax's moons for negotiations. But Kharn had no interest in peace. He maneuvered the situation deliberately, ensuring that the meeting would erupt into violence, believing that only through shared bloodshed could the leaderless World Eaters be reunited into something resembling a functional fighting force. The battle that erupted was everything the World Eaters could have wanted. They fell upon Skalathrax with characteristic fury, carving through the Emperor's Children positions with chainaxe and bolter. The defenders, including the warband of Lucius the Eternal, offered heavy resistance, but the sheer aggression of the World Eaters' assault was overwhelming. City after city fell to the Khorne Berserkers as they pushed the Emperor's children back toward their final defensive positions. Victory seemed inevitable. Just one more push, one more overwhelming assault, and Skalathrax would belong to the World Eaters claimed in Khorne's name. But then the planet's nature revealed itself in the most devastating way possible. Skalathrax's knights were not merely cold. They were lethal on a scale that defied comprehension. When the planet's long darkness fell, temperatures plummeted to levels that could kill even a Chaos Space Marine in power armor within moments. This was not the gentle cold of an ice world or the harsh but survivable chill of a tundra. This was cold that seeped through ceramite and froze superhuman flesh solid. Cold that made the air itself seem to crystallize. Cold that represented death to victor and vanquished alike. Both sides recognized the threat as the temperature dropped and brothers began falling frozen to the ground. An uneasy ceasefire emerged. World Eaters and Emperor's children alike retreated to whatever shelter they could find. Buildings, bunkers, underground chambers, anywhere that offered protection from the killing cold. They huddled in these refuges, waiting for dawn and the warmth that would allow battle to resume. This was tactically sound. This was survival. This was rational military thinking that any commander would have endorsed. Kharn saw it as cowardice. The World Eaters had been on the verge of victory. One more assault, one more push through the Emperor's children lines, and the planet would have been theirs. But his brothers had faltered, had retreated, had chosen survival over slaughter. They had allowed the cold, mere environmental hazard, to dictate their actions, to delay the blood offering to Khorne that was rightfully owed. The disgust Kharn felt in that moment was absolute and transformative. This wasn't merely anger or disappointment. This was a fundamental rejection of everything his brothers had become. A realization that they had grown soft, that they valued their own lives more than the glory of combat, that they had forgotten what it truly meant to serve the blood god. So Kharn acted. He seized a flamer, a weapon designed to project burning promethium in cleansing gouts of fire. In the freezing darkness of Skalathrax's endless night, Kharn began to burn. He torched the nearest buildings where World Eaters sought shelter, the flames spreading with terrifying speed through structures never designed to withstand such assault. Warriors who tried to stop him, who attempted to reason with him, who sought to preserve their own lives and those of their brothers. Kharn cut them all down with mechanical efficiency. One of those who tried to stop him was Centurion Gruner, the very man who had trained Kharn on Bot decades earlier. Gruner spoke of madness and betrayal, cursing Kharn for daring to strike down the battle brothers of his own legion. But Kharn merely laughed. He had stood upon the walls of the Imperial palace. He had been the last to be borne away from Terra, his body broken after he had slain what legends claimed was 1,000,000 of the Emperor's defenders. None would ever surpass his tally of kills. The contest was over, and he had won. In Kharn's mind, the weakness he was witnessing, World Eaters seeking shelter, prioritizing survival over slaughter, was the same weakness that had caused their defeat at Terra. Not just the weakness of the World Eaters, but of all the traitor legions. They had failed to take the palace not because the loyalists were stronger, but because the traitors were too concerned with their own lives, too willing to retreat when victory demanded total commitment. Filled with disgust for this perceived cowardice, Kharn beheaded his former training officer and continued his rampage. He walked into the freezing night that should have killed him, continuing to burn buildings and slaughter everyone he found, World Eaters and Emperor's children alike. He became a figure of fire and death moving through the darkness. The flamer that would later be named the Burning Brand of Skalathrax, leaving a trail of burning buildings and corpses in his wake. The effect on the other World Eaters was catastrophic. Driven from their shelters and inspired by Kharn's absolute commitment to violence, many turned on their own comrades. The battle transformed from a conflict between two legions into a three-way bloodbath as World Eaters fought Emperor's children, who fought other World Eaters, who fought anyone within reach as the nails and the example of Kharn's madness drove them to new heights of frenzy. What became known as the Night of Madness saw the World Eaters shatter as a unified fighting force. As Skalathrax burned and the killing continued through that endless freezing darkness, the bonds of brotherhood that had held the Legion together, already frayed by the nails and the influence of Khorne, snapped completely. When dawn finally came, the World Eaters were no longer a legion but hundreds of scattered war bands, each following its own path, each dedicated to Khorne but no longer united in purpose or command. The Imperium's 12th Legion had been broken not by loyalist forces, not by the Great Scouring, but by their own greatest champion. Kharn had done what even the Emperor could not. He had destroyed the World Eaters as a unified military force. And from that moment forward, he bore a title that would define him for the next 10,000 years. Since the Night of Madness on Skalathrax, Kharn has become exactly what Khorne desired, an avatar of pure indiscriminate violence. For over 10 millennia, he has carved a blood-soaked path across the galaxy, following the scent of war wherever it leads, killing with the same enthusiasm whether his targets are Imperial, Xenos, or other servants of chaos. He is quite simply the greatest mortal champion of Khorne in the galaxy, second in power only to the Daemon Prince Angron himself. The pile of skulls that stands beside Khorne's brazen throne in the realm of chaos, dedicated solely to Kharn's offerings, would dwarf the greatest hive cities of the Imperium. Every death Kharn has caused, every skull he has claimed, every drop of blood he has spilled has been counted and catalogued by the Blood God, and that count continues to climb with every passing day, an endless tally of slaughter that spans 10,000 years and shows no sign of slowing. Kharn leads his own warband now, the Butcher Horde, a collection of Khorne Berserkers and other warriors who share his insane dedication to violence. They follow him not out of loyalty or respect, but because being near Kharn means constant battle, and constant battle means the blessed relief from the agony of the nails that only killing can provide. It's a purely transactional relationship. Kharn provides targets, they provide additional bodies to multiply the carnage. But following Kharn is dangerous even for those who share his allegiance. His tabletop rules perfectly capture this reality with the Betrayer special rule. If Kharn is not locked in combat at the end of the charge phase, there's a chance he'll kill one of his own bodyguards, unable to distinguish between ally and enemy when the blood rage takes him. This isn't mere game mechanics, it's a reflection of the absolute truth of what Kharn has become. He is a weapon that recognizes no distinction between friend and foe, that exists only to kill, and that will turn on anyone unfortunate enough to be within reach when the killing stops. His combat record over the past 10 millennia reads like a catalog of the galaxy's deadliest species. Human skulls might be the most desirable offerings to Khorne, but Kharn has slain almost every kind of Xenos and demon imaginable. Hive tyrants, those massive synapse creatures that coordinate entire tyrannid swarms, have fallen to Gorechild's teeth. Necron overlords, ancient machines of living metal that have survived 60 million years, have been torn apart by Kharn's fury. Eldar autarchs, masters of war who plan their battles centuries in advance, have found that all their foresight meant nothing when confronted with Kharn's unstoppable assault. Orc war bosses, the largest and most brutal greenskins their species can produce, have learned that size and strength mean nothing against a warrior who has been killing for 10,000 years. Even demons are not safe from Kharn's wrath. Though he serves Khorne, Kharn will happily slaughter demons of the other chaos gods if they cross his path. And if a Khornate demon gets in his way when he's seeking more worthy prey, well, Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows. The campaigns Kharn has participated in over the millennia have become the stuff of legend and nightmare across the Imperium. During the Blood Torrent War on Ula, Kharn fought with such intensity that when his chainaxe became stuck in a war machine and his plasma pistol broke, he simply started using the factory machinery around him as improvised weapons. Over 1,000 enemies died to industrial equipment wielded by a berserker who refused to stop killing just because his purpose-built weapons had failed. During the 7th Black Crusade, Kharn was the first to board the Blood Angels strike cruiser Sanguine Tear, and the last to leave when the mission was complete. By the time he departed, the ship had been transformed into a flaming crypt, every defender dead, every corridor running with blood. The Blood Angels eventually scuttled the vessel rather than attempt reclamation. The corruption was too complete, the death toll too absolute. The 13th Black Crusade saw Kharn serve as a key Chaos commander during the Diamor campaign, where he led his butcher horde against the combined forces of the Blood Angels, the Adeptus Mechanicus, and Imperial Titans on the planet Amethal. The fighting was apocalyptic, with god machines trading fire with demonic engines while Kharn and his berserkers carved through the defending Space Marines. The campaign demonstrated that even after 10,000 years, Kharn retained enough tactical acumen to serve as more than just a blunt instrument. There was still intelligence beneath the blood rage, still cunning within the madness. After the opening of the Great Rift and the literal tearing of the galaxy in two, Kharn sensed the presence of Saint Celestine, the living saint of the Adepta Sororitas, on the planet Sadreka. He traveled there specifically to claim her skull for Khorne, carving a bloody path through the Imperial defenders until he found her. The duel between the Blood God's champion and the Emperor's saint was brief and brutal. Despite her divine blessings and her ability to resurrect after death, Celestine fell to Gorechild's hungry teeth. It was a victory that resonated across both sides of the conflict, proof that even the Imperium's greatest champions were not safe from Kharn's wrath. Most recently, during the Arks of Omen campaign, Kharn reappeared at the side of his returned Primarch Angron. The Daemon Prince had manifested in real space for the first time in millennia, leading a massive World Eater's assault that threatened to drown entire sectors in blood. During the Battle of Malak, Kharn led a boarding action against the Imperial battleship Honor of Terra, fighting his way to the bridge and personally slaying Trincus Abconsis, commander of Indomitus Crusade Fleet Quartus. This campaign represented something remarkable, the first time since Skalathrax that a significant number of World Eaters had fought together under unified command. Angron's presence had accomplished what nothing else could, temporarily reuniting the scattered warbands of the 12th Legion. And at the forefront of every assault, as always, was Kharn. Yet for all his campaigns and all his kills, Kharn remains an enigma even to those who have studied him for centuries. He is not mindless, despite the nails, despite 10,000 years of constant slaughter. There remains a dark intelligence behind those eyes. Inquisitors who have survived encounters with him report a sense of terrible purpose, of calculation beneath the berserker fury. When Kharn attacks, it's not with the random flailing of a madman, but with the precision of a master warrior who has spent 10 millennia perfecting the art of killing. Some theorize that the original Kharn, the voice of reason, Angron's equerry, still exists somewhere within the monster he's become. That occasionally, in moments between battles, he might remember what it was like to have friends, to value loyalty, to serve something beyond mindless bloodshed. But if such moments exist, they're fleeting and irrelevant. The Kharn that strides across the galaxy's battlefields recognizes no such weakness. He exists only to kill, and he performs that function with the dedication of a weapon that has found its perfect purpose. The Imperium has tried to stop him countless times. Entire regiments of Imperial Guard have been mobilized when reports place Kharn in a particular sector. Space Marine chapters have dedicated strike forces to hunting him down. The Inquisition has marked him as one of the highest priority targets in their endless war against chaos. None of it has mattered. Kharn survives because that's what he does. He's too fast, too skilled, too impossibly lethal for any conventional force to bring down. And even when he is brought down, even when weapons that should kill him strike home, he has a disturbing tendency to get back up. The Imperium has tried to stop him countless times. Entire regiments of Imperial Guard have been mobilized when reports place Kharn in a particular sector. Space Marine chapters have dedicated strike forces to hunting him down. The Inquisition has marked him as one of the highest priority targets in their endless war against chaos. None of it has mattered. Kharn survives because that's what he does. He's too fast, too skilled, too impossibly lethal for any conventional force to bring down. And even when he is brought down, even when weapons that should kill him strike home, he has a disturbing tendency to get back up. Kharn's most iconic weapon is Gorechild, and the chainaxe's history is inseparable from the warrior who wields it. During the Shadow Crusade, when the World Eaters and Word-Bearers brought ruin to Ultramar, Angron wielded his twin chainaxes Gorefather and Gorechild with devastating effect. These were not ordinary weapons. Their teeth had been torn from the jaws of Mika dragons on the death world of Luther McIntyre, creatures whose fangs were virtually unbreakable. The hafts were forged from adamantium, and the heads were each a full 3 spans across. During the Battle of Armatura, Angron became entombed beneath a falling building, buried under tons of rubble. In his fury to escape, he used Gorefather and Gorechild to claw his way out, the grinding teeth tearing through stone and steel. But the abuse ruined the weapon's delicate tooth tracks, the precise mechanisms that allowed the chainaxe teeth to rotate properly. When Angron finally emerged, he threw both weapons away in disgust. They were broken, useless, never to function properly again. Kharn found Gorechild in the aftermath of the battle. He knew he was risking Angron's wrath by even touching it. Legion tradition dictated that discarded weapons should be left alone, and Angron maintained the gladiatorial superstitions of Nuceria, believing that inherited weapons brought ill luck. His battle brothers protested, warned him that he was inviting disaster. But Kharn couldn't explain why he felt compelled to retrieve the weapon. It was as if Gorechild had chosen him, or perhaps he recognized in the discarded chainaxe a kindred spirit, something that had served Angron faithfully but was now cast aside, deemed broken and useless. Kharn gave the weapon to the Dark Mechanicum adepts attached to the World Eater's fleet, ordering the senior magi to restore Gorechild to its former glory. He even had them excavate the battlefield to recover the original Mika dragon teeth, ensuring that the weapon would be reconstructed exactly as Angron had wielded it. When the work was complete, Kharn claimed Gorechild as his own, binding the massive chainaxe to his wrist with chains in the custom he had learned from his Primarch. For 10,000 years since, Gorechild has been Kharn's constant companion. The weapon is a legend in its own right. Even in the hands of an unskilled user, it can split an armored space marine from crown to crotch in a single blow. In Kharn's expert grip, it's an instrument of apocalyptic slaughter. The Mika dragon teeth have never dulled, never broken, continuing to tear through ceramite, adamantium, and flesh with equal ease. The weapon rises and falls with metronomic regularity, each strike claiming another skull for Khorne's throne. Gorechild is more than just a weapon to Kharn. It's a symbol of his connection to Angron, a physical link to the Primarch he served before demonhood transformed the Red Angel into something beyond mortality. When Kharn wields Gorechild in battle, he carries a piece of his father with him, wielding the same tool that once belonged to a Primarch. For the World Eaters who remember, seeing Gorechild in battle is a reminder of what they once were before the nails and the betrayal and 10,000 years of endless slaughter. Complementing Gorechild is Kharn's plasma pistol, a master-crafted weapon of ancient design. Plasma weapons are notoriously unstable, prone to overheating and potentially killing their wielders with catastrophic energy discharge. But Kharn's pistol has served him reliably for millennia, spitting bolts of sun-hot plasma into his enemies almost indiscriminately as he closes for melee combat. He uses it less as a precision weapon and more as area suppression, firing into the mass of enemies ahead of him, to thin their ranks before Gorechild goes to work. Then there's the kill counter. Installed in the lens of Kharn's helmet, this arcane piece of technology was a gift from War Master Horus himself, given to Kharn during the Great Crusade when his love of killing was becoming legendary even among the World Eaters. The counter tracks every kill Kharn makes, displaying the tally in his helmet's eye lenses. It's been counting for over 10,000 years now, through the Heresy, through Skalathrax, through countless campaigns across the galaxy. The number must be staggering beyond comprehension, a kill count that no other warrior in the galaxy's history could match. But Kharn's greatest asset isn't his weapons, it's the blessing of Khorne. The Blood God has marked Kharn as his greatest mortal champion, and that favor manifests in ways both subtle and dramatic. Kharn is faster than he has any right to be, moving with a speed that defies the bulk of his power armor and the weight of Gorechild. He's stronger than a normal Chaos Space Marine, able to cleave through armor that should resist even chainaxe teeth. And he's impossibly hard to kill, shrugging off wounds that would fell lesser warriors and continuing to fight even when his body is a mass of injuries. On the tabletop, Kharn's rules perfectly capture his nature. The Betrayer means that if he's not in combat, he might kill his own allies, a perfect representation of his inability to distinguish friend from foe when the blood rage takes him. Berserker Frenzy allows him to potentially stand back up the first time he's destroyed, refusing to die even when death should be inevitable. And Skulls for the Skull Throne inflicts mortal wounds on nearby units, representing the sheer carnage that follows in Kharn's wake. His stat line reflects a warrior who has mastered close combat over 10 millennia of constant warfare. Weapon Skill 7 puts him among the finest fighters in the galaxy. His 2+ save represents his ancient power armor, corrupted by chaos but still providing formidable protection. His 4+ invulnerable save suggests Khorne's protection, keeping him alive through attacks that should kill him. And abilities like Rampage and Precision Strike show a warrior who becomes more dangerous as the fighting intensifies, who strikes with the accuracy of a master even in the midst of berserker fury. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Kharn is what he represents to the Imperium. He is proof that the traitor legions are not fading threats, not relics of a bygone age, but ongoing dangers that continue to threaten mankind's existence. Kharn has been killing for over 10,000 years, and he shows no signs of slowing down. He is the ultimate expression of Chaos's promise: power without limit, existence without end, but at the cost of everything that makes life worth living. The tragedy of Kharn the Betrayer is that he represents a transformation so complete, so absolute, that the man he once was has been utterly consumed by what he's become. The warrior who calmed Angron's rages, who formed friendships with champions from other legions, who valued loyalty and brotherhood. that Kharn is gone. What remains is a weapon that wears human shape, an avatar of the blood god who exists only to kill. And yet, there are moments, brief, fleeting instants, where something of the original Kharn seems to surface. His final words to Sigismund during the Siege of Terra suggested an awareness of what he had become and what the Imperium was becoming in response to the heresy. When he pleaded with Perturabo to flee Deluge before Angron attacked, there was a flash of the old protective instinct. These moments don't redeem him. Nothing could redeem 10,000 years of indiscriminate slaughter, but they suggest that somewhere, buried deep beneath the nails and the blessings of Khorne and the accumulated madness of millennia, a fragment of the original Kharn might still persist. If so, that fragment is perhaps the most tragic element of all. It means that somewhere within the monster, there might be awareness of what he's lost, of what he's become, of the friendships betrayed and the legion shattered and the endless pointless killing that defines his existence. But awareness changes nothing. The nails won't let him stop. Khorne won't release his champion. And Kharn himself has gone so far down this path that there's no possibility of redemption, no hope of return. He will kill until someone finally manages to end him permanently, or until the galaxy itself ends in fire and darkness, and every skull he claims, every drop of blood he spills, every senseless act of violence he commits adds to the count that has been climbing for 10 millennia. Kharn the Betrayer is many things: a cautionary tale about the corruption of chaos, a demonstration of what happens when noble intentions meet terrible circumstances, a reminder that the galaxy's most dangerous enemies were once mankind's greatest heroes. But above all else, he is the answer to a simple question. What happens when a warrior designed for war is given nothing but war for 10,000 years? The answer walks the battlefields of the 41st millennium, wielding a Primarch's chainaxe, counting kills in a helmet lens, leaving mountains of corpses in his wake. The answer is a warrior who knows no friend from foe, who serves a god of blood through the only sacrament that deity recognizes: endless eternal slaughter. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of Warhammer 40k's most tragic and terrifying champions, please hit that like button and subscribe to Legends of the Imperium for more comprehensive lore videos. Share your thoughts on Kharn in the comments. Do you see him as a villain, a victim, or something more complex? And let me know which character or faction you'd like me to cover next. The galaxy is vast and there are endless stories waiting to be told. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. And in the grim darkness of the far future, Kharn the Betrayer continues his eternal war, a monument to everything the Horus Heresy destroyed and everything it created in the destruction's wake.